we can get good old sound bites
Yeah,
in the B-roll.
for sure.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me today, Brandy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we met at TFRW board meeting last Saturday, a week ago Saturday. And as Catherine Engelbrett was up on at the podium, you were doing that with your head as she started talking about CISA. And of course, you know, I grabbed my phone and I'm like, what the hell is CISA?
Yeah.
So, you know, my big thing, and I'm, you know, I try to learn as much as I can so I can be educated. And so I don't get into these, you know, horrible knockdown, drag out arguments with people that think they know. I really want to know.
Yes.
So when you started nodding your head, I started asking you questions. And in our election integrity group that we actually have several groups, but one that is actually attached to the Republican Party of Bexar County is Bexar County Election Integrity. And I mentioned CISA to them, and you know, and they're great. I don't want to downplay them, but they're like, oh yeah, I mean, it's just all screwed up. And they started talking about Eric, and then I tried to get them back to CISA, and I'm like, okay, well, here's the question, and this is my question to you. Why do we need CISA if no voting machine is connected to the internet?
Well, I think you have to take a step back and remember that anything that's automated, anything that's developed, software developed, anything that's built on code now, because of where we are from just a threat landscape on digital assets, we have to be a little bit more eyes wide open, if you will, on where attacks can occur and how they can occur, right? And so let's first unpack this a little bit so that we can understand who the key players are. So when you look at cybersecurity and security requirements, there are key government agencies that are helping define standards, guidelines, and requirements. CISA is one of those organizations that helps design the standards, requirements, and they also provide threat intelligence as they're seeing different themes or activities across nation state activities. So they do provide an important and essential part of intelligence for any kind of security program or security team, right? It takes a village, and with where we are from an attack perspective and a potential compromise perspective on any system, you need some of those players that have deeper pockets and broader understanding of what's happening to give you that intelligence. Now, once you understand that particular role, the next question is, well, what systems are we using? To your point, are they connected, what we call externally facing or connected to the internet or not? Now, if they're not, externally facing, the next question is, well, how well provided is our physical security around these assets, right? So are they air gapped? Do we have cameras watching who's coming and going from that? Have we restricted the ability to use a USB stick, right? Some of these systems, even though they're not facing the internet, the data is downloaded and then it's passed to other systems for processing, right? So the chain of custody between these systems, right, as we're moving data is really the conversation that we need to have, is who's responsible for that chain of custody, and how are we ensuring the integrity of that data as it's moving from one environment to another? And that's really the heart of this conversation.
And I love that you brought up chain of custody.
Yes,
I have been in Central Count, tabulating mail-in ballots, having them be spit out of the machine, interpreting another Republican's vote, and then the election judge asked for a chain of custody so we can see where this material has been. The election administrator goes to her office and she does a screenshot of whatever has been delivered. And I'm like, that's not an official chain of custody. That is not anything that has any evidence of where this has been and where it's actually has been picked up and how it got to us. Now, I want to take just a moment. Can we mention who your employer is?
Probably not.
Okay. Okay. So
But this, I can share with your audience that I've been in IT for 26 years. I've been in security for 13 of those 16 years, 13 of those 26 years. And my current role as a security officer, these are the conversations we have every day about ensuring the integrity of data. And I would have to argue that if, in order for us to evolve and have this conversation, you want an integrity, someone who's monitoring integrity on the business process, right? Mm-hmm. So the person you just talked about, that person is watching the business process. We need to have people that can demonstrate the integrity at the system level, right? So for me to take a screenshot, that's not where it is. I need to look at the logs, see if someone altered the logs and how the system is computing the data. So I would beg to differ that we actually now need to introduce a new role. And the new role is someone who is system qualified from an IT and cybersecurity perspective. And it's an independent, neutral person who can attest to the integrity of the data at the system level, not the business process level, right? Because that's not where the war is. The war is not at the business process.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Can you share, you're a TFRW member, you're a member of Austin Republican Women?
Georgetown.
Okay. Yes. Are you on the board or?
I am.
Good.
I'm a secretary.
Excellent. I'm campaign activities coordinator for Alamo Heights.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, we get into these groups and I was actually surprised at some of the clubs, I should call them clubs, about how diligent they are and how hardworking they are and how they get into the nitty gritty that we're talking about right here. So
yes,
I so appreciate you taking the time
for sure
to take us through this, because we all want to be educated. So you mentioned that a new role. Are you working on anything that we can support, that we can advocate for with some of our local officials, some of our candidates, anything like that? Just to make it real.
I think we have an opportunity here. I think we have an opportunity to position to our leaders what an updated structure for voter integrity sort of operating model, right? Mm-hmm. I think you have really well-structured training and processes around the voter registration process. Once you're in the room, poll watcher process. Like I said, I just think there's this additional component around data integrity because we are processing data at the system level where we need that additional role. So have I started this? I've had a couple conversations, but nothing official. I think this is the prime time this year to introduce it. And I think Texas is the right state to introduce, processes that will help the rest of the nation.
Good. We're, We're always the first and the best.
Exactly. We are.
There you go.
That's why we're the best.
So do you have any examples of anything that you can share that we can look for? I mean, I'm a poll watcher. I hang out with poll watchers. I hang out with election judges. Is there anything that we need to be looking for? Or is there anything that as an election integrity committee that we can add and go talk to, anybody to advocate for this?
Well, as far as who to talk to, that I think we could probably approach.
Legislators?
Or the appropriation committees that are designed to help advance some of these practices. But here's the thing that I think we could do, like boots on the ground ready, right? First of all, any systems that are processing our data, we've got to keep our eyes on that. Someone should be watching that system at all times. No one should be allowed to walk up to that system with a USB stick that hasn't been checked first, right? The USB stick, that's notorious in the security industry for containing, backdoor malware or compromise or copy pasting, any kind of script, right? So that if we're going to use a USB stick to transfer data, let's check it, make sure it's clean, it's authorized. Second is, I think within the polling campaign, you're not supposed to have a cell phone. Well, that's where our physical security requirements are just as important. I've heard of some cases where, someone was in a room and they had their cell phone with them and they were next to a device that was tabulating votes. That should not be, right? That should not be permitted. And if it is seen, that should be escalated to leadership right away. So I think there's some basic security, physical and IT security training that we can enable our poll watchers with, so that they know what to look for and how to escalate it. And then to my earlier point around once the counts are in, there's a number of ways using automated or system level capability where I'm checking the logs of a system to make sure that the data wasn't compromised or interrupted. Now, mind you, with some of the discussions that we've had around larger campaigns to interrupt a political activity, more well-funded nation state kind of, that would take advanced kind of intelligence and detection and forensics. But I think there's some things that we can do boots on the ground just as, active participants in the process.
When Catherine Engelbrecht said that she is one day security something or other paper, how do we do that?
If you want to be super secure, keep it on paper.
Yeah.
Don't put it online.
How do you, I'm always like, oh my God, we've got this Leviathan of all of this stuff. Like, do we just cut the cord and say, okay, we're just going to go to this?
You mean as far as a voting practice?
Yeah.
Well, I listen, I don't think we can back away from being digital. I mean, we're here
Right
now. We're not going to back away from it. I think going paper, talking about wanting to have voting completed in a week. There's the only way that we're going to be able to do that is have it through some automated digital manner.
Right.
But what we can do is we can build security in by design, right? We know what to look for. We know how to evaluate systems at all different levels: process, business process, human process, and then code and technical process, right? Sometimes I wonder why why we're surprised when certain things happen. If you focus on hygiene, practice the hygiene, and be consistent on it, that's what we have to do. If the cameras are supposed to be up and running and monitoring a location, make sure they're tested beforehand. We shouldn't find out after the fact that the cameras weren't working, or potentially they were working and somehow they were taken offline for some reason or another, right? So I think we have to be intentional, and both sides, it doesn't matter what side you're on, we should want to be intentional, because we are talking about ensuring the integrity of our constitutional rights, right? And everybody wants to have the benefit of those constitutional rights. So
I would hope so.
I think it's a rally cry for us. And I think we can keep it simple. We don't need to make it complex, but let's be consistent.
So you sent me this great little cheat sheet. You mentioned use cases and concerns. Or is that what we're talking about now? Or
yeah. So an example of a use case is like we're in a voting in an environment, it's a voting location, and you see someone with a device walk up to a machine. That's a scenario where we should ask. Like, I think sometimes out of being, I don't know, politically correct, or I don't want to offend anybody, but it's okay to walk up. Say, I see you approaching this machine. Help me understand. Like we have to be more vocal about that.
And what I witnessed, so I got a call from who's now Jeff McManus. He's now the Bexar County chairman, and he says, "Hey, Central Count needs help. I told them about you, and then I got my friend Laura, and we're like, they're lickety split." And it was amazing to me. And this happens a lot because I have this expectation and I'm working on lowering my expectations or having no expectations. But I walk into Central Count where, I'm in the belly of the beast of everything election in Bexar County, and it is in disarray. It is unorganized. There's like papers and, just stuff laying everywhere. Not anybody is really, the best word I can say is gung-ho about making sure that this is right. And there's a standard of excellence that we're trying to hit. And I was just so surprised at the, in San Antonio, I call it manana. They're like, whatever. But that hurts me. I mean, it seriously hurts me because I'm like, I'm like into the thing, and they're like, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
That's what concerned me the most when I got out of there. The other thing was actually election night, and I have been debriefed, and I have given my notes on this. Was on election night, it was probably about 9 o'clock, and someone came to the door and said I needed to call my wife, and because we didn't have our phones on, and she's trying to get me, and something happened with her father, and I needed to leave. And so as I walked out the door to leave, I looked down, and on one of these small rolling filing cabinet is a USB key with a yellow tag on it, just laying there. And I'm like, I could just grab that and walk out the door with it, and no one would have ever known. And so I get Laura, and I said, tag that, make sure, get Jackie, get a technician, do something, figure out where did the key come from?
Yeah.
Like literally, where was it born? How did it get to that
for sure.
particular spot?
For sure.
And then my biggest, the big letdown is we do all this work, and we have all of these notes, and we have all of these, these poll watching debriefings, and you hear nothing.
Go back to crickets.
Yeah, you hear nothing. I think there was only one affidavit that was filled out during the election, during the primary season that I know of. And I would have thought that I would have heard more, affidavits being signed on, I saw this at the center, I saw this in the tabulation room, but that was the only real thing that I heard. So I'm so happy to get to know somebody that actually knows the ins and the outs, because I'm one of these, you can call me a tinfoil cap conspiracy theorist, but I think somehow the systems are already compromised if we don't know where they're coming from.
Right.
I don't think we do it enough. And you're sitting here and you're telling us we have to have more diligence in figuring out the crux of the actual systems.
Right.
So, going forward, what do we need to do? I mean, when we talk about the integrity of our elections, we're talking about one vote, one person, one vote. And is that particularly true in the cases that we've seen?
So I'm going to unpack the conversation a little bit, because there's a lot there. So, I think when we look at, we have to elevate the understanding, the folks that work in the election room and support our election process. I think in most cases, they wouldn't be there if they didn't understand the level of importance, right? I mean, that's why they're volunteering their time without really a lot of compensation. They believe in the bigger picture. But once they're in the room, to your point, the precision, and again, this is independent, we are protecting our constitutional birthright, right? So the precision around what's my role during the time I'm in that room is going to be very important. And you see something, say something, right? That's the other thing. You see something, you say something. You don't want to wait, don't want to turn a blind eye, and I'm not saying people do that, but to your point, if you didn't hear a lot about a lot of different escalations or reports, maybe that's what's happening. But so I think we have to elevate the roles in those rooms. And and I think it goes back to training with what does watching look like now when there's the ability to compromise a vote from a digital perspective versus what was watching, or what did watching look like back then? Right. When it was all paper-based, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think we're still using the same, the same techniques for a new system.
Yes.
So would it be, and I just thought of this, would it be wise to introduce some sort of a certification within the systems, within Dominion, and have a group of people actually go and learn how these systems are actually put together. So it is coming at us and we know exactly what we're looking for.
What to look for, if a system is not supposed to be internet facing or if you see the Wi-Fi capability turned on, why does it have the Wi-Fi turned on? If it's not facing the internet, turn that puppy off. Or you see the Bluetooth capability turned off, you could pass data Bluetooth to Bluetooth and not be internet facing, right?
Yeah.
So turn that puppy off, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's just, and again, this is not a negative statement. It's just a statement around how we're evolving our practice, and we need to evolve our practice to match. We are now digital. So what am I watching? Like, what am I looking for? Mm-hmm. Or sorry, that ended a sentence in a preposition. For what do I watch? Then the other part of your question, just around what does that mean to the integrity perspective? It depends on where this attack's coming from. I mean, the landscape is so well versed. It's a business, right? It's a business. Right. And so the professionals that we're dealing with, that they are single focus, they're intentional, and it is a business. They are precise, mm-hmm. right? And so we have to meet precision to precision, right?
Can you mention any I guess players on the outside?
You mean like as far as nation state concerns? I think, and again, that's why partnerships with CISA and reading their reports, they will publish reports very clearly about what to watch for. Mm-hmm. We have, publicly like label TPL white. So when the FBI issues reports or concerns, they label it available for cascade. We know that there's just been, from the recent posts from the FBI, that there's a lot of concern getting ready for the November election, for election integrity. And, I'll compile a couple links, a list of things for the reader or for your audience to read. Mm-hmm. But any one of those categories, they're well funded. They have a very single focused vision. They have a purpose and they have a mission. When you're going up against, groups with a mission, and there's a purpose behind that mission, that means you have to be very intentional, right? Mm-hmm. This is not, and sometimes I wonder if in the US, we have had such a really strong, long run on our constitutional rights and everything that we rely on, and very little, unlike countries like Israel, where you have to serve in the military, but everyone serves, right? Mm-hmm. So my husband served, but I take benefit because of his time serving, right? Right. So I think that there's sometimes a mental thought process around the precision. What does that mean to be ready, right?
And I think our education system has gotten away from that. When you grow up in Texas, you take Texas history. Yeah. I don't think you take Iowa history if you grow up in Iowa. I mean, maybe, but there's something to be said about having that patriotism, and what I consider to be indoctrinators today call me an indoctrinator of yesterday. And but maybe my indoctrination is better because I want the best for everybody. Yeah. I want everybody to know that when they're not working, somebody else is working for them. And then those roles need to, we need to roll into each other and help each other out, especially with these threats that we have. And these are not threats. These are battles that were being waged against us on a daily basis.
Yes, the playing field, the warfare playing field has changed, and hence why we responded with a Space Force. Mm-hmm. It's because we will battle in the digital space here. I mean, we're there now, but it's going to be even more. Right. But I think you're right. I think as I remember growing up with my mother telling me the stories, like she would read to me about how this nation was formed and how you were born with these rights, and how as a conservative minority, here's how you exercise these rights. This is your right. You should never shy away from it. And we would have these conversations around, what does that mean to you and why should you care, right? And how do you make sure that it's something that, the next generation has access to?
Right.
And so it's really important. And so anything I can do to help and share and train and
Absolutely.
teach, I think that's important.
Absolutely. I love your story. I love your patriotism. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
that we sat next to each other at the table.
Yes.
There were several times during Catherine's speech that you were nodding your head, and I was like, okay, should I be nodding my head? Because I'm just fired up about everything, and I love this call to action that we all have.
Yes.
And I've been focused on the border issue for the last couple of months. Kelly Perry wasn't there on Saturday. She had a little break in her schedule, but I just recently interviewed her, and she's having a border summit, a border crisis summit at the Capitol on September 7th.
Okay.
Hopefully, it's not open to the general public though, but this morning she sent out to all the TFRW clubs that the clubs adopt a legislature to make sure that they go. It's only for 350 people. But she wants all the state legislators there so they can really understand what is going on. With my friends in election integrity, there's all these little pockets because you want to vet everybody and you don't want to let too many people in. But I do think there needs to be kind of a junior slate of, for the young people, to understand why we need to fight for our vote.
Yeah.
And to understand the threats that are coming at us every day for
our,
like your mother says, our birthright.
Right.
Tell me going forward, like specifically what you would like to see us do. Because I try to give everybody some sort of actionable task that if this interview resonates with them, some sort of actionable task that they can do to help you or to help the cause or whatever.
Well, I think.
Is there anything organized to handle that?
Yeah, so I think coming out of this interview, with me, I'm going to follow up with you to see how I can help materialize some of the training, right? And again, if we, to your point, if there is an overarching process that we have to have a formal submission to influence the broader process, I think subsequent to that, we can work with our election chairs, different members of when we're training, and we can maybe spread it across our Republican Women's group, right? Create a quick reference guide, introduce that to the different chairs. And it's not anything that conflicts with the existing training. It's just what additional aspects of watching from a digital perspective do you need to include, right? And I think that's something that we need to inject into the process. But for November, because we're it's right around the corner. Let's see what we can do, and I'm here to help. Yeah. So I guess that's the main point. That was the long answer.
It's all right. It's okay. We'll think of something for somebody to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because, this is the first, I've been conservative for a long time, but this is the first time I'm active, like super active, because there's so much at stake, right? There's so much at stake.
Yes.
And, and I'm learning along the way, and I appreciate, partnerships and just being able to get the word out there and do as much as we can and help the people that can't see what they're losing. They'll see it over time.
Very good point. Very good point.
Yeah.
Well, Beth-Anne, this has been enlightening.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I have notes I need to study and then follow up with you.
I'll send you an email. I'll send you some links.
Yeah.
And then let's operationalize this for sure.
Awesome.
And by the way, I love your energy too, because I mean, you're on it. You are on it.
Thank you. Thank you. I try.
Yeah.
I try.
Yeah.
I try.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. I'll send you an email.
Please
Okay.
have a
All
good
right.
day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.